Welcome to Better by Great Place to Work, the podcast that helps companies create a great workplace for all, because it's better for people, better for business, and better for the world. I'm Christopher Tkachuk, the Chief Content Officer at Great Place to Work. Each week, we meet with great leaders who have helped their companies become better workplaces by focusing on their best asset, their people, who in turn help their organizations become more successful. Support for Better comes from DHL Express, the global market leader in international express delivery.
Hey everybody, it's Mike Malloy from Quicken Loans and the Rocket family of companies. So the interview you're about to hear was recorded on March 5th. And if you think back, that was just before the pandemic really, hit and changed our lives, the way we work together forever. So I talked in that interview about our isms and how we use our isms. Those are the things we believe in to align with, all the actions we take, and how those isms drive our behavior of our team members and how we impact our communities and try to support each other. And there's been no better example of that than how we've worked together in our communities and with our team members during the COVID pandemic. So let me talk a little bit about those things. First, how we support our communities. When I was at the Great Place to Work Summit, I had the privilege of receiving an award on behalf of our organization, talking about our impact and the impact we make for our communities and team members. And the pandemic really opened up new ways that we never thought of to support our community. And I'm going to give the first example, which has nothing to do with being a mortgage company, a fintech company, but has everything to do with being obsessed with finding a better way. And that is, in the early days of the pandemic, testing was virtually unavailable in the city of Detroit. And we saw this really impacting the health of folks, really impacting the community. And Detroit was one of the places, or back in March, that had one of the big spikes. New York, New Orleans, and Detroit were among the biggest spikes early on. So what did we do? The mayor reached out to our leadership team and asked if we could build a testing site for the community. And the city had the land. It was at the fairgrounds, but they didn't have the logistics to run it. So our technology team worked 72 hours straight to build them an app to schedule people to come in and out. And at the same time, one of our family of companies called Rock Connections, which is a contact center, volunteered to build a process and then was put in place to help schedule people to come in and out of this testing center. And so in less than a week, in a time of crisis for millions in the Detroit metro area, we were able to help build this site with a public-private partnership and really upgrade the ability for people to get tested at a time where there was a lot of uncertainty and where people were really struggling. And so that was a great example of how we worked through it. Some other examples we have, we worked to help, source PPE from all sorts of folks. We used our procurement team to find PPE, not for our team members, though we needed some for our security and others, but really to give to the hospitals and give to frontline first responders in order to do that. That even included purchasing a mask making machine, which we now have and use to, distribute masks across the community to hospitals, first responders, others who might need additional PPE. Our team members also stepped up in a big way, making hundreds of thousands of donations. When we totaled it all up through our community challenge, we made more than $600,000 worth of donations in the early days of the pandemic. And we focused on education. Now, we've hosted a golf tournament for a long time, and now called the Rocket Mortgage Classic in Detroit, and it's really been an amazing event. But this year, during the pandemic, we realized that we needed to reorient the charitable outcomes from that. We hosted it without fans. Why? Because we wanted to make sure that we could still drive impact in the community. And we took all the funds we raised through that with ourselves, with partners, with PGA, and we aimed those at bridging the digital divide. When we saw the Detroit public schools go to a virtual environment, we saw that there were 30% of households had no broadband and no devices and no ability to engage. And not only does that prevent those children from accessing education, but also it hurts those families from accessing jobs, from accessing resources, from accessing other things they need. And so we have committed, along with many other stakeholders, which has been amazing, to bridge the digital divide and make sure that every child has a device and access for themselves and their families to bridge that massive digital divide that is holding back those families. So that's a little bit about what we did in the community. I want to talk also about our team members. Now, when I got back from the Great Place to Work Summit, that next week we were all together. We'd been working in a war room. As we learned, we had to start learning how to distance in those early days. All of our team members, with the exception of about 2% of our team members who are critical on-site, went to working from home. And this is an example of money and numbers follow. They do not lead. That's another one of our isms. Because what we found is we had always been a everybody works together in the office kind of crew. And so what that meant was that most of our team members did not have an adequate work from home setup really to be in for the long haul. So what did we do? We had already purchased millions of dollars worth of equipment as we saw the pandemic start to, get worse in other parts of the world. But even as we began to distribute that, we realized we didn't have enough. And so we started stripping our offices, pulling technology off desks, pulling monitors and computers and everything. And we set up a drive-through for our team members. And they would come in and they'd show their badge and they'd tell us what they needed, and we'd get them the technology they needed. And in less than a week, actually in 4 business days, we went from everyone in the office to 98% working from home. And we've obviously continued to optimize that. But that idea of money and numbers follow and getting those team members what they need as quickly as they could was really helped us continue to thrive through the pandemic. We found that our team members were struggling, right? Not with our production because we've set records throughout this, but because they weren't taking time for themselves. This whole working from home, I've heard people say, we're not working from home, we're living at work. And that's true. And so in the early days of the pandemic, and I think most people saw this, we were here, we had our computers, we weren't really going anywhere, so everyone just worked and worked and worked. And while that may seem like it's good for business, it's not in the long term because it's not good for people. So we were encouraging people to take their paid time off, which they have plenty of, but they weren't taking it. So finally, we put in something called the R&R days. And what we did is we literally said, this is not paid time off. This is not out of your PTO bank. Every team member is going to just take a day off. And we picked it by the month they were born. So on one day, everyone who's born in January, they all had the day off. We just said, nope, don't come to work today. The next day, everyone who's born in February, nope, they're not going to come to work. And we did that through, the whole months of May and June. And it was great for our team members to take a step away and also to get back in that habit. And what we've seen now is people are taking more of that time off for themselves because we made it okay. We made it said, this is part of the way you need to work. So, and then we've had engagement events, and you can't ever do enough to engage team members. So, it used to be there was Take Your Kid to Work Day, and that actually came in the middle of, early on in the pandemic, and we were laughing about it because, of course, people had their children with them all day. So instead, we did how do we help support folks by having things that would entertain the children. And so, I read a story actually with my teenagers, read on the stories I used to read them when they were young. We had people, baking cookies, other things to help entertain the kids because the parents who have those caregiving responsibilities, boy, this has really been tough on them. We've also rolled out other caregiving things, support for care. Our own dictionary.com, which is part of our family of companies, is rolling out a virtual tutoring first to our team as a beta test, and they're going to be taking it wide. And hopefully, maybe it's something your company could take advantage of. But throughout this period, we've always looked at how we can do everything we possibly can to listen to our team members, to hear what their needs are, and to provide them support as best we can, right? Because the inches we need are everywhere around us, another one of our isms. And what we found is the support of our team members is not one big thing. It's a million little things. But I do want to talk about one other big thing that's happened since I recorded that video, and that is in the middle of a pandemic, in the middle of an extraordinary time, And 35 years into the history of our startup company, we decided to do an IPO. And so in August, we took our company public. We sold about 5% of the organization on the public markets. And it was a really exciting day. But the most exciting piece was why, Dan Gilbert, our founder, decided to do that, right? He wanted to make sure that every team member would have an ownership interest. So we issued shares to all 20,000 team members when we did that IPO, because we wanted to make sure that everyone got to share in the success of the organization, which we hadn't been able to do before based on the structure of the company. So really exciting, an amazing thing for Dan and for our entire team to do together, and just another testament to, money and numbers follow, they do not lead. So that's just a really short recap of what's been an extraordinary time. I hope you enjoy the rest of the interview where I talk to the folks about living our isms and how we use that to drive our behavior every day. Thanks so much.
Welcome to Better by Great Place to Work. We're coming to you from the 2020 Great Place to Work for All Summit in San Francisco. And today we are joined by Mike Malloy, who's the Chief People Officer at Quicken Loans. Quicken Loans is the nation's premier fintech lender and the largest provider, correct, of mortgages in the U.S. So I just want to make sure that's still true.
Oh, absolutely.
And just now, before we started recording, we were talking about how fast Quicken Loans has rocketed or grown, especially after during the financial crisis, 2007, 2008. And you reminded me that the reason why was because you didn't get into the subprime loan problem that was affecting the entire economy. So, that's why I think you guys have a great branding situation with your Rocket Loans.
Yeah, it is.
And just now, I just finished recording the episode with Ellen McGirt and Tony Bond. And Ellen ran into Mike on the way here into the booth, and she said, "Oh my God," she goes, "Quicken Loans has the best customer service of any company she's ever dealt with." So congratulations.
That's great.
It must have felt great to hear that.
It's always great to meet our clients. For us, all of those things, whether it's what loans we do and trying to make sure we're doing loans that really benefit our clients, whether it's the service of our clients as they work with us, all of that starts with our culture. Mm-hmm. We have what are called our Isms. They're the 19 values we have that we share, and those Isms are the core of our organization. Mm-hmm. What they are is coming down from our founder and chairman, Dan Gilbert. Mm-hmm. Dan started Quicken Loans, the company that is now Quicken Loans, with himself and his brother and a friend in a 10 by 12 office in 1985. Mm-hmm. Last year we did $145 billion in mortgage loans.
That's crazy.
Why? Because he says there is nothing more important than understanding what your culture is and writing it down so everybody knows it. And that's how we make sure that we always are focused on doing the right thing, serving our clients, and being obsessed with finding a better way.
You mentioned Dan Gilbert. How is he doing?
Dan is doing very well. He has been recovering. For those your listeners who are not aware, he suffered a stroke last year, but has been relentless about his recovery. And just a week or 2 weeks ago, made his first public appearance and was honored for the Detroit business, Crane's first ever entrant into their Hall of Fame.
Oh, fantastic.
He gave a speech and was welcomed so warmly by the business community, who are so happy to see him out and about. And he is incredibly focused still on our business, but even more so on what we can do to help our communities in Detroit, but also in Cleveland and Phoenix and Charlotte and the other places we do business.
Right. I just want to comment and say that as a native Detroiter, Dan Gilbert has had a profound effect on the revitalization of the city that I grew up in. And he's gotten a lot of recognition and awards for it, such as the one you just mentioned, the Hall of Fame. But for anyone who's not been to Detroit, you have to visit. It's really has become a awesome kind of what's the word?
It's hip,
it's
fun,
chic,
it's cool. Yeah,
the art scene's amazing. The food scene is becoming amazing.
Outstanding.
Yeah. So I go back to visit. All of my family still lives in Michigan, but I go back, at least a few times a year. And I now have decided to stay actually downtown when I'm there.
That's awesome.
Usually I'm staying with family or whatever, but now I just stay in the hotel downtown because there's so many of them, so many cool ones.
It's very cool. Dan G likes to say, when we get him here, we got him.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning if he can bring in other business leaders who are thinking about expansion, and they'll come in and see what's going on, they'll be like, yeah, we want to open an office. LinkedIn opened an office just down the street from us, and Google and others have brought sites into Detroit.
Facebook has an office there now too,
Facebook,
I believe.
others, because they see it and they're blown away by the vibrancy, and that it's not what people think. Obviously, there's this, during the financial crisis, it was very difficult, and there were a lot of challenges, and there was the bankruptcy, and therefore people have a vision of it. But that vision is not true. I tell everyone I meet, whatever you think of Detroit, it is not that. And if people get there and come and visit and see it, they'll be blown away, and then that helps drive those further jobs. And of course, Dan is been a huge part of that, but it's not just Dan or Quicken Loans.
No,
it's a massive number of stakeholders in the communities, public and private, religious, philanthropic. So many people coming together to commit to the rebirth of an amazing American city. And so it is truly extraordinary for our team members and all of us to be a part of that. And when I was on the main stage just a minute ago,
I was going to mention that. Yeah, I want you to talk
I talked about this because for many organizations, it's sometimes hard for them to find a mission that team members really can lock into. Obviously, we're all in business. But our team members feel so incredibly, energized because they are part of something larger than themselves. In the Great Place to Work survey, 96% of our team members said they felt great about the work we do in the community. 96%.
Wow.
And that means they can see and feel how we impact the city of Detroit and Cleveland and Charlotte and Phoenix. And then how we're trying to work to end veterans' homelessness nationally. And work we're doing in the communities, not just in the central business district in Detroit, but all across Southeast Michigan, right? And our team members know that they can take part in that, and we have 70% of our team members take part in those volunteering and giving events, double the national average. But even more than that, they know that by coming into work and serving our clients and doing their jobs, they are driving something much larger than any of us, than ourselves, and that is incredibly powerful for us as we work to drive our business.
Yeah. One thing that really surprised me a year ago, when Great Place to Work was working on compiling this research report that we published. I think it was in July of 2019. And it was around innovation by all. And Quicken Loans was part of the story that we told about the ways that companies can, companies that are great places to work for all, and where there is equality in the way that they treat and a consistency in the quality of the work experience. When there is that equality, it actually helps the company innovate faster. And so we told a really fantastic story about one of your employees at Quicken Loans.
Olya Kenny.
Yeah, exactly. Olya Kenny, and it was about how she was able to help develop some software to help customers who might be colorblind experience having a great customer service experience, right? Online, on the website. Yeah.
And called it the Empathy Generator.
Empathy Generator, which is a fantastic name.
What a
We're
name.
going to get into the naming shortly about a lot of the different divisions and products at Quicken Loans. But for our listeners, please go to our website and download the research report, Innovation by All, in which we tell that story. We even had Olya Kenny at the summit last year, and she did a great job with my colleague Ed Frohnheim, who moderated a panel discussion about Innovation by All. And the focus sessions that we do are basically, the personal stories about what companies are doing to not only create great workplaces, but how they're innovating better.
Yes.
Or creating innovation, I should say.
Well,
so thanks for letting Olya share that story with us.
Yeah. And it's funny that one of our isms is innovation is rewarded, execution is worshipped. So think about this. Oya had an amazing idea, right? She had this idea, and then she worked with a team with others to actually turn that idea into a tangible piece of software. She executed on the idea, didn't just come up with it and then say, oh, what if? But executed, turned it into something that people could use in real time. I've used it myself, and it's.
Oh, wait, are you colorblind?
I'm not.
Okay.
They showed it to me to feel it. There's a reverse to make you understand what it would be like.
Okay.
If you were colorblind, and they showed me sort of the inverse side.
Yeah.
But that's just part of empowering team members, letting them innovate, helping them drive our business, and then also, taking that next step and making sure that if they have the idea, they can actually carry it forward.
That's great.
That's really it's innovation, but it's also execution. Innovation without execution is just going to be a wasted opportunity.
Before I forget to ask you this, I want to talk about the fact that I was also surprised when I found out that Quicken Loans is not just a mortgage lender. That you have a variety of businesses that sort of fall under the Quicken Loans umbrella, and I'm not going to get it right trying to describe what it is, the full suite of things that you guys have. But can you give a very brief synopsis about the many different businesses and products that Quicken Loans sells?
Quicken Loans itself is just a mortgage company. We have there are a few other companies that are sort of owned in some portion by Dan Gilbert. We have a holding company. Quicken Loans is part of it. It's called Rock Holdings. But under that, there also are other fintech brands. So we have Rocket Homes, which is a digital mortgage. A digital real estate company. We have Rocket Loans, which is a digital personal loan company. We have Core Digital Media, which helps us with advertising, internet advertising, and the other things. We have Rock Connections, which is a call center function that helps us do business, but also is now getting into the online sale of cars. Has been a big business for them. So we're always looking to innovate, and then. Dan, of course, has personal interests outside of Quicken Loans, outside of that Rock Holdings. Of course, he owns the Cleveland Cavaliers, most famously, and folks know him for that. But also has interests in some other things, some other brands that you may have seen. Fathead is one of those interesting ones. Shinola watches we have some interest in.
Have you stayed at the Shinola Hotel?
I have been at the Shinola Hotel. Yeah. I'm wearing a Shinola watch right this moment.
There you go.
I have a couple of them, and but there again, it's a Detroit manufacturing company, a company that built manufacturing in the city of Detroit, and so that's something we have to be part of because we're committed to that ecosystem.
The reason why I mention all these different brands is the fact that it's a result of the innovation by all approach. I do want to talk about diversity, and Detroit is an incredibly diverse place. You have scored most recently as number 57 on our best workplaces for diversity list. Congratulations on that.
Well, we're striving to get better.
Everyone is.
We are working to get better, and
companies that are on the list and not on the list are all striving to get better. At least they should be.
Yes, we very, very much do.
Yeah. So how are you looking at ways in which you can find the best talent to increase the diversity, knowing that diversity has a direct effect on innovation?
Yeah, so our diversity and inclusion team, led by our Chief Diversity Officer, Trina Scott, has been doing an amazing job of helping us grow in this space. As you say, we're 57. We want to be much higher than that, not because of where it ranks on a list, but because we want to be the best employer for diversity, right? That's our goal. So how do we do that? Well, finding and recruiting the best talent is a real challenge. But it is critical to our future business success, and finding that diverse talent, from all over, wherever folks come from, making sure they will feel included, feel they can belong, feel they can be their whole selves at work, right? And so when we think about that recruiting, we've really expanded the way we think about all of our talent pools. We bring in about 1,000 interns a year to our offices every summer. And we've thought, how do we expand that? So we've created relationships with HBCUs. We've looked at different places to do our hiring. We've tried to expand beyond beyond just the usual, go to the local college and recruit. And so we've really seen an uptick in our recruiting across the board because we're being intentional about it. And every time I talk to Trina, we talk about intentionality, because so much of this is, being bought in, but we're already bought in. Dan G's bought in. Jay Farner, our CEO, is bought in, right? So then it's on us to make sure we execute. And how do we do that? It's about being intentional and not just saying the same old thing will get us the same old results. So we need new ways of thinking about these issues in order to change and get better every single day.
This podcast is brought to you by DHL Express, the global market leader in international express delivery. Recognized globally on Great Place to Work's World's Best Workplaces list, DHL Express makes a positive contribution to the world by connecting people and enabling global trade, while being committed to responsible business practices, purposeful environmental activities, and corporate citizenship. Learn more at dhl.com. You mentioned the Isms earlier,
Yes.
And you brought with you today the Isms book.
The Isms book,
2020,
yes.
which I'm holding up for the cameras.
That's right.
That we're recording if you're watching this on video. If you want to see the video and you're listening to it on your audio podcast, you can go to our website to find that.
Yeah.
So tell me what was in the Isms book. What's it all
the
about?
Isms book, you're going to enjoy it. You read it. All 19 of our isms are in here. And we have every ism, a description of it, and then ways in which we and others either have lived it or sometimes not. And what it does, it helps our team members. Every team member, every time we publish a new edition, we make sure every team member gets a copy of the new edition, right? We make sure that everyone has this in their hands, on their desk, at their home, so they can understand exactly who we are and sort of what it is, how we're supposed to respond to things. So you mentioned the mortgage crisis, right? One of our isms is a very simple one: do the right thing, right? By doing the right thing for our clients, our company was in vastly better position coming out of the crisis, right? We talk about how we serve. You talk about the client service, right? One of our isms: every client, every time, no exceptions, no excuses. What does that mean? If you send me an email, you call me on the phone, I'm your mortgage banker. I'm not, but were I? You're one of our client-facing team members. Someone will respond to you within 24 hours. No exceptions, no excuses. That doesn't happen, and you call and said, hey, Mike was my mortgage banker. He didn't call me back, right? You know what happens?
You get fired?
Team looks into it, and if it's true, they create what's called a no-return call complaint. And it goes all the way to every member of your leadership team, all the way up to and including
The CEO?
Dan G himself.
Oh, okay, great.
Right? Why? Because we said it. And if we didn't live every client every time, we didn't live the no exceptions, no excuses part, right? Then we're not in integrity. Right? So we live it. And we make sure that we also as leaders are living that same thing. We're responding to team members if they reach out. If team members reach out to Dan G, he calls them back. Or, and with his health challenges, others, maybe a member of his team will, or he'll ask me to reach out to him or whatever, but someone will respond. Why? Because that's who we say we are. And so we have to live inside integrity by making sure we're always doing, living our isms.
That's great. Before, so I'm going to have to wrap up soon, but I mentioned the best workplaces for diversity list, but I also have to mention that you're on a whole bunch of other ones too.
Yes.
So I just want to run through the list. Best workplaces for parents, for women, for millennials, in financial services and insurance, and of course, as I've mentioned before, 100 best companies to work for. You're also on the People magazine's list of the companies that care, and that's I've heard and I've spoken with a number of CEOs whose companies appear on that list, and a lot of them say, that's my favorite. Scott Scher, the founder of Ultimate Software, told me that actually last fall. He said, that's the one I'm most proud of.
Yeah.
And that's a list that we compile, Great Place to Work compiles for people that looks at the philanthropic effort and the community work and the volunteering that companies do. So that is also very important to focus on.
Yeah, it's incredibly important to us. And as I say, that engagement in our communities drives our team members and lets them understand how they're part of something larger than themselves. When I was on the main stage presenting about this just a little bit ago, what I said was, one of our isms is obsessed with finding a better way. And that's how we think about our impact on communities. Mm-hmm. We are obsessed with finding a better way. And what that means in this context is we looked at problems that seem intractable, seem insoluble. And we say, how can we get there? How can we do something different? And so a couple examples. You mentioned the incredible rebirth of the city of Detroit, right? Mm-hmm. The largest municipal bankruptcy in the history of America.
Right.
And yet, because of working with folks and Dan bought more than 100 buildings with our Bedrock Real Estate Company in downtown Detroit.
And not just a building, skyscrapers.
Yeah. And when no one else wanted them, when they were empty, when there were no tenants in them.
Right.
And brought all of our team members, which were incredibly successful company out in the suburbs in Livonia, downtown. Yeah. At the time, 3,400 team members. Now, almost 20,000.
Wow.
In downtown Detroit. And having that impact and working with all the stakeholders and doing the things to drive incredible new businesses, creation of jobs, investment. We just announced with Steve Ross and the related companies, as well as the University of Michigan, the creation of the Michigan Innovation Center, where the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, is going to put their graduate school of engineering in downtown Detroit.
Oh, wow.
On a site that used to be the half-completed, rotting former county jail.
Wow.
That was half-built and stopped.
Yeah.
And we tore it down and built the county a new jail somewhere else,
right,
so we could have that piece of land on which we're going to put the Michigan Innovation Center. Incredible partnership with so many stakeholders, right? And then we talk about, right, if we can make that impact in the central business district, how can we help in our communities, the neighborhoods? We have a program called Neighbor to Neighbor, where our folks went door to door. We hired a number of Detroit residents and sent them door to door to educate people about tax foreclosures. There were more than 150,000 tax foreclosures. 150,000. Contributing to blight in the neighborhoods, not because anyone did something wrong, but because folks didn't pay their taxes and the city, county had to try to collect. We went door to door. We educated people. 10,000 homeowners were able to get an abatement and save their home from foreclosure. Hundreds more, we worked with them. They were renters. Their landlord was going to get foreclosed upon, right? So we intervened and worked with the city and the county and the land bank and others. And I told a story about a woman named Pearlie Mack who she was going to be thrown out of her home through no fault of her own because her landlord hadn't paid the taxes. And instead, we intervened, we educated, we worked with her. And for her paying her, quote, rent for the next year, a grand total of $3,500, she became the owner of that home. And we've had hundreds of people like that through our Making It Home program. And none of that has anything to do with mortgage lending, but it does have to do with being home. And that's how we have our team members think about these programs.
And that approach to community involvement in care comes from Dan.
Yes.
He started that.
Yes.
And has created such a fantastic culture of people who just continue that tradition.
Yeah.
So that's great.
It's really exciting. Yeah. And then the last one is you think about this obsessed with finding a better way, looking at these really big problems and saying these can be solved, right? We've worked with a group called Community Solutions, and you may have seen our TV commercials. We ran a number around Thanksgiving. We are committed to ending veteran homelessness in America, and we're working. And one of those problems that seems, again, intractable. And yet it is possible. 11 communities working with Community Solutions and a vast array of stakeholders, including our Quicken Loans Community Fund. 11 communities in America have eliminated veteran homelessness, and 3 communities have eliminated chronic homelessness entirely. It is possible, but you have to be obsessed with finding a better way, and you have to do something other than what communities have done for so many years. And you have to think about investment, and permanent supportive housing, and other things that will allow folks to move from that state into a much better place. And so that's how we think about being obsessed with finding a better way, whether it's in the city of Detroit, whether it's in our community in Southeast Michigan, whether it's nationally with veteran homelessness, whether it's with our clients, whether it's with our team members.
When you think back on your career with Quicken Loans, what has been the one single best day that you've ever had at work?
It's a great question. You know, there's so many good days. I enjoy everything I do. I feel incredibly blessed to be given the opportunity to do what I do, impact our team members, make people's lives better, create jobs, help serve our community. But one thing that really always sticks out for me is when I see the true examples of our team members living the Isms. And I recall a team member, one of the best days I remember, recall a team member coming to me and saying, Mike, I have this idea. And this is when I was, before I had this chief people officer role, I was leading our mortgage servicing business. And a team member came to me and said, you know what? I see that, you know, so 99.5% of our clients are doing amazingly well. But there still are about, you know, half of 1% who are struggling, who can't make their payments. And we do everything we can to help them. He said, but you know what? I'd like to contribute some of my own hourly rate to help those clients in need.
Wow.
And that example of truly living the Isms, I always remember that. For a team member, hourly rate, working, and I'm sure, he wasn't a person who had substantial means, but he said he cared so much about the people he talked to every single day that he thought, I'd like to give some of my own money to try to help those folks. And then we worked on some things and actually found ways to use some money we were getting back from the federal government as we helped those team members, and instead allocated that money, but to the kind of program that he thought of, which is
cool.
a fund to personally help folks. And that's the kind of thing that makes me fired up to show up every day.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
This has been a great conversation. So thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Thanks. You've been listening to Better by Great Place to Work. The producers are Lizelle Festejo and Katie Van Geffen. Audio and video production is by Resonate Recordings. Better is generously sponsored by DHL Express, the global market leader in international express delivery. Tell us about your great workplace experience by finding us on social media. We can be reached on Facebook and LinkedIn at Great Place to Work, and on Twitter and Instagram at GPTW_US. Also tell your friends about Better, which can be found wherever you download your favorite podcasts.